Retro.
Hi, this is Claudia Gray, the author of several Star Wars books, and you are listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. May the Force be with you.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is a fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And it's Monday, so that means we're starting the week off with a look at some Star Wars news. But before we get into the latest, Jay, where can we be found around the internet?
Well, just as always, we are on Facebook and Instagram conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right, this is a line. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So let's get to it. Up first, James Mangold did a recent interview with MovieWed talking about the Dawn of the Jedi movie, which we still don't know if that's actually what it's going to be called, but that's what everyone's referring to it as. And I guess you could say he was mainly talking about what's important to him when it comes to doing this movie, why it was appealing, and what he hopes to accomplish. And so again, if you're not familiar with this it's going to be a movie talking about the discovery of the Force, so to speak, and the birth of the Jedi 25,000 years before the Skywalker saga. And he's working on this movie with his writing partner, Bo Williams. And he went on to say that, to me, the why he chose to do this, he says, to me, the really important aspects are the freedom of making something new. And then he said, Bo and I, in relation to Star Wars, have been working on a script, and we'll see what happens. And then he comments, do we find a way on the page to say something original? And further comments are, the Star Wars movie would be taking place 25,000 years before any known Star Wars movies takes place. It's an area and a playground that I've always wanted to explore, and that is what, and that I was inspired by as a teenager. I'm not that interested in being handcuffed by so much lore at this point, and that it's almost immovable, and you can't please anybody. So that's some fairly insightful comments that he made about why you'd want to do a movie set 25,000 years before everything else we know that happens.
Right. Well, when he says the thing that strikes me the most about this entire interview is that where he says it's an area and a playground that I've always wanted to explore and that I was inspired by as a teenager. So I had to look up how old James Mangold is, and he's 61. So he's not that much older than you and I are when it comes right down to it. So I'm thinking, this is when Expanded Universe, he would have been a teenager right around that time when, there was this lull between the movies that we had at the time. We didn't think we were getting anything else after Return of the Jedi. So I'm wondering, with the origins of the Force, if this is going to be more of like a philosophical kind of investigation into, even further back than, what we know as the Old Republic, into like the origins of Ashla and Bogan and that type of thing, and looking into some of the tribes of the Force and how different things were played out in various ways. So, I mean, I know that there has been a lot of speculation as far as like what's going to happen with this, but given his age, I just wonder if maybe that's where the inspiration is coming from.
Yeah, because he would have been a teenager before we even had like many of the novels that you and I grew up with, that we've talked about on the show, and the depth of comics. So there would have been the Marvel series that came out around the same time as A New Hope, but that's interesting that he's inspired by thinking about what it would have been like for someone to discover the Force when it comes down to it. And so, is this at a point where there was any type of interplanetary system travel, or is the Force just being discovered on one planet, or is this movie going to be set in one place, like you said, amongst more primitive tribes? Or again, the Star Wars galaxy takes place in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, and they've got more advanced technology than we do. So what does that mean?
Right.
Which is something fascinating to think about. But I
Yeah,
guess
yes.
what I'm really encouraged by this is that he's looking to tell a new story. And as he says, he's not going to be handcuffed by so much lore that he has to worry about everything he does contradicting something else and taking off somebody.
Mhm.
And so it's not, he knows he can't please everybody, but he's avoiding the story that won't please anyone. And I think
Sure.
that's a very smart move.
Oh yeah, I agree because it's not going to be restricted by any kind of current, narrative, if you will, that's going on with storytelling. He's not going to step on the toes of the High Republic. He's not going to step on the toes of anything that has come, thus far. But yet he might be able to incorporate some of the legends material as well if he wants to. And it gives him maybe a little bit more freedom to do something like that.
Oh yeah, sure. And he doesn't even have to have lightsabers. They could have swords. They could have,
Right.
they could make the first lightsaber. Something about the Force could direct them to that. They could have the discovery of the first kyber crystal of this movie if they wanted to
Oh,
do
that'd
that.
be so cool.
It could take place on Elum for all we know. But
Mhm.
so anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I liked hearing from him on this and that. For one, it's encouraging that he's still thinking and talking about this movie, and it hasn't been completely back burnered like so many other Star Wars projects to where he's thought about enough that he can give insightful comments like this.
Mhm.
And it's not him still looking for a writer. He and his writing partner are currently working on this project because
Mhm.
they just put out the was it the Bob Dylan movie, right? I can't remember what the name of it is. With
Oh,
Timothy
yeah.
Chalamet is in
Mhm.
theaters right now, and so I don't think he has anything else on his plate, but I could be wrong about that.
I don't know. That's a good question, but at any rate, I'm looking forward to it, and we are gonna keep our hopes up that it's actually gonna happen because we've,
Yeah,
had the Star Wars giveth, Star Wars taketh away so many times.
yeah. See, I'm looking at his IMDb page right now, and he is listed as the producer on two movies upcoming, Crenshaw and Juliet. That Bob Dylan movie is called A Complete Unknown, by the way. And then for as a director, it's Crenshaw, Juliet, and Star Wars: Dawn of the Jedi. So those are
Oh,
the three things that he's got coming up. So yeah, don't know what the order of these things are going to be, but hopefully that means that it'll be sooner rather than later because at the moment, the only thing that we know that's got a firm release date is The Mandalorian and Grogu for 2026. And I
thank
hope we're not
goodness.
waiting another 5 years for the movie after that.
Yeah, yeah, we need to get Star Wars back in the theaters more often, that's for sure.
Uh-huh. Well, we don't have anything newsworthy from Disney Plus or Star Wars on television, and we've kind of got a little bit of news in the realm of books and comics. And that comes from the reveal of a Star Wars Insider Revenge of the Sith special edition that you can find on Amazon.com if you're interested in ordering it, which will be a 96-page expanded version of Star Wars Insider that will it's described as a deluxe, fully illustrated look at the making of the final chapter of the prequel trilogy, the 2005 blockbuster Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. And they go on to say the hardcover volume features a behind the scenes look at the making of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith from script development to concept art and costume designs through it to filming and eventual release. Lavishly illustrated with photography and art from the Lucasfilm archives, this must have collector's edition also includes vintage interviews with Star Wars Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, and Natalie Portman. Um, so there's another aspect about this we'll talk about in just a second. But what do you think about this making of little edition of not little, but 96-page edition of Star Wars Insider?
No, I think it's a really cool addition to anyone's collection that loves Revenge of the Sith. I don't know if it's something that I'll necessarily pick up. I guess I would have to maybe go to my local Barnes and Noble when it comes out in June and thumb through it to see if it's something that is, worth it. But we've talked about before that there's just only so much space on the shelves and there's only so many things that you can own, but I just think that it's a great way to, pay a lot of respect to this movie, which deserves it for sure.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, the concept designs for the costumes is the thing that really piques my interest. But I'm still trying to get my hands on, not to change the subject, but it's called Dressing a Galaxy.
Oh
And
yeah.
it has all of the actual samples of the costumes from the prequel trilogy in it. So for me, that would be something that I would want even more than this. But I think it's a really cool idea to be able to do for anyone that wants to collect this. But what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. This is making the rounds on a lot of Star Wars news sites, which is why I discovered it for this discussion of news. And I don't want to belittle anyone's work. Everyone's got to make a buck. Then that's fine. But these vintage interviews, are we familiar with them already? I mean, what do you mean by vintage interview when it comes down to it? I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming this has been available someplace else. And are we going to learn something new in this behind the scenes material? Yeah, it could be cool as a supplement to the collection, especially this year for us as we go through the
Right.
movie in our monthly series. But am I just going to discover that all this stuff is available online? Is
Hmm.
there anything new here that's going to really make me want to have it? So, yeah, I'm with you. I think your plan to head to the local bookstore and see if you can find a copy on the shelf and, flip through it and see really how valuable it is probably the right way to go. But in the day and age of the internet, I am less and less tempted to go out and buy these things because no
Hmm.
matter how cool it is to have at the time, it's hard to keep them in good condition.
Right.
And then,
Right.
and then and not just sitting at the bottom of a drawer somewhere.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. And I'm going to, speaking of which, I'm going to have to go through. I'm sitting here staring at them right now. I have so many magazines and
Uh-huh.
special edition collections from when all of these things were originally released. So I'm going to have to go through and pick out all of my Revenge of the Sith ones because I know I have them. But I mean, if nothing else, this will make a good coffee table type of book, that you
Right.
can just set out and pick up and have for conversation, and it's only 20 bucks on Amazon. So, I mean, it's not like it's gonna break the bank for anybody, but, again, it's just one of those things that you kinda have to pick and choose, "Okay, do I really wanna add this?" But, I mean, 96 pages, though, I mean, that's actually a lot. That's quite a compilation.
Yeah, but for 20 bucks, I would expect, I think, a few more pages than that. But
Mhm.
anyway, the other thing that happened,
Fair.
though, was revealed
Mhm.
is that we're getting the 20th anniversary logo for Revenge of the Sith, and I expect we're going to see this on an awful lot of packaging and merchandise. But simply put, we've got the classic image of Anakin and Obi-Wan clashing sabers from Revenge of the Sith, with Darth Vader's helmet in the background behind him, the number 20 above them, and then below that, Revenge of the Sith in a white script. Uh, that's going to be on all kinds of things this year, I'm sure,
Mhm.
from uh, you know, Star Wars Lego to I know there's a new Arc 170 set that they've got out, and other toys, and I'm sure hats and the like. Would not be surprised to see that on a lot of stuff at Star Wars Celebration later this year. So be on the lookout for that. And it's just very clean, smart design, just three colors: white, red, and black on it.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, and it very is much reminiscent of another patch that I saw somewhere. I believe it came actually from, the fan club back in the day, or I have a sticker or something that looks very familiar to this. So I'm gonna have to go back into my own archives and see if I can find it.
Okay, all right, check it out then. All right, well then, the last story we got this week in our very short news episode is one more guest announcement for Star Wars Celebration Japan, and that would be the voice of Darth Maul himself, Sam Witwer. And Fantha Tracks and others are reporting that he will be available at Celebration for autographs, photo opportunities, and the like for all 3 days, the 18th, 19th, and 20th. Probably going to show up on a panel or two somewhere. And so if you want to meet Sam, now you know how to do it. He's always a good get for Celebration or any con. I guess I'm not terribly surprised he's going to be there because he tends to show up at Celebration quite a bit.
And he is amazing. And if anybody knows Star Wars, it is Sam Witwer. I mean,
Uh-huh.
just to hear him talk, he is so knowledgeable and he's so passionate. And he was actually just at GalaxyCon Columbus, in December, and I was not able to spend a whole lot of time there, and I would have loved to have gone to see him and meet him. But I did have some friends that had an opportunity to do it, and they just oohed and awed and just, gushed over how amazing he is and how much time he takes with you. And, he's just a class act. So yeah, anybody that
Yeah.
gets an opportunity, I would highly recommend it.
Well, I know I told this story before. I'm going to tell it again because I like telling it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that was I met him at Star Wars Celebration Chicago back in 2019. And I got a autograph ticket for the Thursday night of Celebration. And that was not really a full day celebration. And by that, I mean, they didn't have panels and the like. It was kind of a convention floor day where you could go see some of the exhibitors and you could do things like some of the autographs and photo ops for some of the actors that were there. And anyway, my autograph ticket was for the end of the day. And I was one of the last people to talk to him. And he was wearing a Dungeons and Dragons shirt. And I came up to him when it was my turn. I was like, I love your shirt. I love playing Dungeons and Dragons. As a kid, I taught everyone in my neighborhood how to do it. And we talked about Dungeons and Dragons for like 15 minutes and like didn't talk about Star Wars at all. And he signed the picture of Darth Maul that I have. And it was such a fun time. Like you said, he's so personable. He enjoys meeting Star Wars fans and talking with them about their passions. And I've never seen him give a bad interview. And he's just always full of insight, like you said. So if you get the chance and I would definitely go put down the money and get that autograph and go say hi to Sam. It'll be worth it. Very much so.
Absolutely. Well
Yeah.
said.
All right. Well, that's it. Sorry this episode's short, but that's all we got. There's just not a whole lot going on right now. And I'm just kind of afraid that we're going to be a bit of a dry spell through August, or April, until Celebration. That a lot of stuff that's getting held back on us right now. But as long as there's some news, we'll keep putting these episodes out. We might combine them with a few other things. But again, thank you all for joining us for it. We'll be back with some more news next week. If you've enjoyed the show and you want to keep up with our news episodes, then make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. And once you've done so, we would appreciate if you would rate and review. And those other things that help podcasts out on the various algorithms with places like Apple Podcasts. And then if you want to check out some older episodes beyond the 1 or 200 that your podcatcher is going to have, head over to RetroZap.com where you can find our entire catalog of shows, including all previous 833 episodes. We've been covering Skeleton Crew, and we're doing our Revenge of the Sith series that's coming up. And so all that stuff will be there. Jay, you want to remind everybody again where we're located on social media and elsewhere online?
Sure thing. We are very easily found on Instagram and Facebook at Podcast Stardust. And you can continue to check out those Pinterest pages that we have online, as well as our 2 YouTube outlets. So if you're looking for somewhere to download the shows and share those out, subscribe, you can do that on the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. And then if you want to get in on some real time chatter, you can join us on our Discord room, which is part of the RetroZap Discord server. And the link to that will also be in our show notes. And while you're there, you can also check out all of the other RetroZap shows as well. They all have their own Discord rooms as well. So you can have all kinds of fun chatting it up. And then one more link that you can hit up is the link to our TeePublic store, which has 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of fun things from home goods and apparel and basically everything in between. And guess what? You get something, we get something. So every time you make a purchase, Podcast Stardust does get a little bit back. And, what's better to share the love than having Podcast Stardust out in the wild? So once again, check out that link in our show notes.
All right, Jay, what's going on in cosplay?
All right. Well, as usual, you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And I do have a couple really fun features. I had a recent one on Instagram through Cosplay Over 40. And then I have another one coming up very soon that I can't give details about yet, but I will very shortly. I'm looking forward to the spring when I will be at Fan Expo Cleveland in March and working on some new concepts for that. And in the meantime, you can catch me as Ahsoka, Hera, the Fourth Sister, my original concept Mandalorian, as well as a lot of other fun things as well. So once again, J.Snips Cosplay.
All right. So upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we are kicking off our series covering Revenge of the Sith. It's a monthly series, and we got part 1 coming up and covering the first 12 minutes of the movie or so. So make sure you join us for that. And then on Friday, it's a bittersweet episode as we cover the season finale of Skeleton Crew, which we're very excited for. So make sure you swing by for that one as well. With that said, just want to say thanks for listening to episode 834 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.